Fine, mostly.
Good.
It's been surprisingly cloudy and kind of cold recently. But
Nice Michigan weather you're having there. Like us in Michigan. Okay. Are you ready, son?
I'm ready to go.
Hello. Welcome to Hard Compound, an American take on Formula One. Today, the Spanish Grand Prix. Barcelona. Fun race. Hot. Patrick, son, can I get your 3-word take?
Yeah, my 3-word take, I think not too much of a surprise here, is title fight reliability. Seems like Leclerc and Verstappen are swapping back and forth with some reliability issues. Verstappen early on in this race, pretty concerned with his Red Bull. Turns out his reliable DRS issues were no match for Leclerc's power unit failure. So, yeah, I mean, reliability clearly is having an impact on this title fight between Leclerc and Verstappen. Seems like nobody can really keep pace with those two. But if this persists for Ferrari, or if Red Bull's issues come back, this could be a pretty crazy season.
It's funny that you brought up reliability, because that's my 3-word take. Russell and reliability. Mercedes could shockingly win their 9th straight. How do they do that? They do that because George Russell is one of the better races in F1. And despite all their issues, George Russell is also the only one to make top 5 finish every single race so far. They're not that far behind. Max has had 2 DNFs. Perez has had DNFs. Now Charles, he had such a great weekend. It looked fairly certain like he would win in Barcelona today, only to have his power unit just sort of die on him. That's what we assume. So you're right. This long season of what was planned to be 23, but will now be 22 races, I think is going to come down in large part to reliability. Now, speaking of Russell, what do you think of what he's been doing? It's pretty amazing seeing him jump in that Mercedes and outrace Lewis Hamilton. Not by much, but in my view, over these past 6 races, Russell has the edge over 7-time champion Lewis Hamilton.
Yeah, Russell's been very impressive to start out his career at Mercedes. I think everyone had faith that he would be a very good driver and have every opportunity in a Mercedes to win a championship or multiple championships. And he looks very much the part. Mercedes hasn't quite had the car to match Ferrari and Red Bull so far this season, but with some of their changes they brought this weekend, it looks like they're getting closer. So what Russell's been able to do and sort of outpace Hamilton, but also be far more composed than a 7-time world champion, it is pretty crazy. I didn't necessarily expect him to be the Mercedes company man and outrace Lewis Hamilton. And he's doing both of those things extremely well so far this season.
Yeah, you're right. Great point, too. And it is what Russell is doing is amazing. The fact that he's doing it his first year at Mercedes with Lewis Hamilton still there is just remarkable. Now, let's stick with British drivers. Lando Norris, top 10 finish, but he was throwing up before the race. They said he has tonsillitis, although it certainly sounds worse than that. That was quite a performance, given how ill he was.
Great race from Lando. He, I believe, was out-qualified by his teammate, Ricardo, but was just so much better on Sunday. Ricardo still seems like he's hasn't quite figured out that McLaren this season, and Norris just outperformed him and outperformed many today. I was very impressed by his drive. It seemed a little bit lonely at times. He didn't have too much going on around him, but he was just faster than who he was supposed to be faster than, and maybe didn't quite have the pace of those top three teams, but did really, really well for himself.
He did, and you say Ricardo still hasn't figured out that McLaren, and I can't agree with that. He's now had plenty of time to figure it out. I think Daniel Ricciardo has simply lost a step. We've seen this with Sebastian Vettel. It's not fun to watch, but I don't think Ricciardo will be challenging Norris this season. And this could be his last season. McLaren certainly, I know McLaren has signed him through next year, but there are plenty of great drivers that are available to them. I could see them ditching Ricciardo at the end of this season.
Yeah, that would be something. He's one of the veteran drivers in this sport, and there were a number of seasons, especially when he was at Red Bull, where we thought he might have a shot at winning a championship. He was that talented. I'm sure his talent is still there. He just hasn't been showing the pace, especially on Sundays when it really matters. And since his move to McLaren, he's just struggled.
He has. Now, speaking of showing the pace, someone who has all season, Sergio Perez. So I started off, my 3-word take for Barcelona was Russell and reliability. It could have also been, that's very unfair. I think Perez had a right to be angry at Red Bull. He still had some fight left in him. He had the potential of winning the race. The potential. I think Max, especially when Charles lost his power and was out, I think it was sort of a certainty that Max was going to win that race. But they gave orders to Perez to let Max pass him. I thought much too early. We all know Max is the number one driver there at Red Bull, but when there is pace in your car, you don't want to have to give that up, and so I'm sure Perez is going to have some talk with his engineer, with Christian Horner, and he's right. It was very unfair.
It was very unfair, and quite frankly, I think as a driver, you don't necessarily need to listen all of the time. I mean, don't do anything stupid, but the fact that he just sort of meandered along and then allowed Max to pass for the lead of the race, there was nobody anywhere close. It is shocking to me. He's a Formula One driver. I was really surprised at how compliant he was. We've seen in the past teams give orders like that and it not go well, and drivers ignore that and race their teammates. I was surprised that Perez did that. He's in contract talks again with Red Bull. I'm sure he likes being there, consistently having a shot at podiums. But I don't know. That just seems very unlike an F1 driver to just allow somebody to pass when you have fresh tires, you have the same car. I mean, yeah, I was surprised. And they didn't give team orders to Max earlier in the race when Perez clearly had a faster car.
Yeah, and this is not, 4 races remaining and Max fighting for the championship. This is the 6th race of the season. There's still COVID protocols happening. Checo, at least at that point in the race, clearly, he had the pace. I was surprised that Red Bull gave him those orders, and listening to you was sort of, I probably should be most surprised that he just went along with it. Now, another teammate who I think should be fighting for podiums and who is not is Carlos Sainz. An okay outing, but not a great outing. This was the Spanish Grand Prix. There were 2 Spaniards that finished in the top 10. In my opinion, the veteran Alonso had the better race than Carlos Sainz. What do you think?
Significantly better. Carlos Sainz's teammate, Charles Leclerc, could have easily won that race had his car not crapped out on him. He would have won by a mile. Sainz was fortunate to get back up into 4th place. He has had a really challenging start to this season. We came into this season sort of thinking he was on level terms with Leclerc and kind of battling it out for who would be the number 1 driver there in Ferrari. Currently 6 races into this season, I see this as a Verstappen, Albon, Verstappen, Gasly team, where Leclerc there's just a massive gap there. And it is now in Sainz's head, and he can't figure it out. He's lost. He doesn't know where he is, and he might have to go to a different team in order to figure that out, because he seems like he's just lost it.
Yeah, I think you're right. Why don't we do our top 10? We do the top 10. We count them down after every race. I will start, and my top 2 might surprise you. Number 1, George Russell. May not surprise you. Number 2, Lewis Hamilton. Number 3, Max Verstappen. I think what we're seeing with Max Verstappen and what we've seen since last year is F1's equivalent of Michael Jordan. It's been a heck of a mountain for Max to climb, but once he won the championship, I think he made it clear, I am the best driver, and it's not a close second. And I think all F1 fans should enjoy this ride for as long as it lasts. What Max is doing is incredible, but I think in Barcelona over the weekend, George Russell and Lewis Hamilton, both of Mercedes, outraced him. So my top 3, Russell, Hamilton, Max. Who do you have?
That's interesting. I have a almost similar top 3, but maybe a little more surprising than yours.
Mm-hmm.
So my top 3 are Alonso, Russell, Max.
Wow.
So maybe this is my bias and also kind of excitement about Spanish drivers in Spain doing fairly well for themselves. But I thought, Alonso, not a great qualifying session after showing pace in the practice sessions, but needed to take a grid place penalty anyways for getting new power unit parts. So he dropped to the back of the grid, 20th, and made his way all the way up into the points in sort of a mid-pack car. I thought it was an extremely impressive race, very composed at his home Grand Prix. And showed some really good fight. I really like the way that he raced today, especially after sort of a disappointing and kind of angry drive in Miami. So I thought a great race from him. And also, I'll just say this. I don't think anybody really stood out as having a great drive today. I thought it was kind of everybody had a few mistakes here and there throughout the weekend. And I felt that, Alonso sort of capitalized on his situation the best of anybody this weekend.
I was going to say, one of the things I love about Lewis Hamilton is I think there's no one better at getting the elbows out legally as Lewis Hamilton. He cost Kevin Magnussen today, and Magnussen complained, but I was like, that's a racing incident. Lewis knows what he's doing. He gets the elbows out, and he can knock you off track. No one does it better. But watching Alonso, I mean, if there's anyone in any Formula One driver hopeful, I would just say have someone create a video of just Alonso starts. Put that on a loop. Figure out whatever the hell he is doing, because those starts, almost every single race, are better than anyone else's. So that's amazing. So go on. Didn't mean to interrupt you, but
yeah, I agree with you there. But yes, so in second and third, I have Russell and Verstappen. So kind of two guys that you had up there as well. I thought Russell had a tremendous race, held off Verstappen for a long time. I know Max had some DRS issues, but, Russell had a very strong, composed race, again, finishing in the top 5. A pretty impressive performance from him. And Verstappen just sort of showing his raw speed and power, and able to, after Leclerc had to retire from the race, Max was able to win. So, again, another solid performance from him.
Yep. I have fourth, Bottas. Bottas has been so impressive all this year. He got booted from Mercedes, had to get in the lowly Alpha, and he is extracting maximum performance out of that Alpha. It's been great to see. My number 5 then is Charles Leclerc. Good weekend, great race, held off Max, great start. His car failed him. Ferrari seems always to find a way to have chronic reliability issues. Hopefully, that's not the case this year, and this is a one-off, but I don't think we can be certain of that yet. But a solid race from Leclerc. I then have Alonso in 6th. For all the reasons you said, he took the penalty to start. He was in the back. Amazing start of the race, fought his way back. Just solid driving the whole way. So I have Alonso at 6th. So Bottas, Charles, and Alonso.
Nice. Yeah, I really considered putting Leclerc in here, but I just felt like he could only, unfortunately, not due to his own failures or anything, complete maybe half race distance or something like that, and so it was hard for me to put him up there and rank him highly, just because he wasn't able to actually complete a whole lot of the race. But in 4th, I have Ocon, another Alpine driver. I thought did extremely well, had a pretty hard time qualifying, but showed really good race pace, was battling it out for a while, and got some more really excellent points for a mid-pack team in Alpine. And I think, those two drivers, Alonso and Ocon for Alpine, have become a really good pair. And this weekend, I think they proved why they're both racing for Alpine.
They are, Alpine's, it's the branded version of Renault, but we certainly would like more out of Renault/Alpine, but as far as driver pairings, that's a great one. And they are both doing a great job, Ocon and Alonso.
Yeah, and then I have in fifth, I have Perez. I thought he drove really well today, and aside from some team orders, had an opportunity to win the race. He backed off there and let his teammate go by. I think he should have done more and actually, tried to race a little bit. That's what he should do, in my opinion. Probably not in Christian Horner's opinion. But I think overall, second place, great result for him. Drove really well. Did better than the teammates of the other top two teams in Sainz and Hamilton. Both, failed a little bit and had to come back in the race, whereas Perez started strong and finished strong.
Yep.
And then in sixth, I have Norris. We talked about him a bit earlier, but he had a really strong performance. Was ill. I can't imagine driving in that heat with all those G-forces, being sick and not just passing out in the car. And not only was he able to finish the race, but outraced his teammate and many others to get really solid points for McLaren.
Yeah, I've got the F1 TV. I like to sometimes during the race switch it to the driver view. And I mean, the number of turns in that track, it was just amazing what Norris did in this race. So finding out that he was that ill was just like, wow, how did he do that? Also, let me give you my 7th through 10th, son. So 7th, I have Sergio Perez. Solid race from him, but he gave up the spot to his teammate much too easily. I would have done, as you say, fought back and said, nope, not doing that. Let him, if he's got the faster car, if he's the better driver, he can win this. Then I have Norris, a solid drive. McLaren has just not been doing much this season. They really haven't moved into that first tier the way we have assumed they would, and they don't look like they're going to do that at all this year. But solid drive from Norris, especially considering that he was ill. I then have Ocon, for all the reasons you mentioned, another solid drive. Both Alpine drivers come to every race. They give everything they can. They get as much out of that car as they can. They're sort of in the middle of the field, so you oftentimes don't pay much attention to them, but solid race. And then my surprise number 10, Yuki. Yuki looked so poor in his rookie season last year, and he didn't start the season as well as I thought he might, but he's come along, and that was a solid race. He outraced his teammate Gasly.
Yeah, nice. I like that. For 7th for me, I have Bottas. You had him a little higher. I think he did have a solid race. Maybe wasn't quite on the right strategy, tire strategy there at the end, and really lacked pace to some of the guys behind him who pretty easily got past him. So he dropped down the order there a little bit. But throughout the whole race, and really this whole season, he's been very solid. Probably among the best drivers of the sort of middle pack teams. And really, I think has found a sweet spot at Alfa Romeo, following kind of I don't know. I don't want to call it a torrid time at Mercedes, but certainly he was never the top dog, and I don't think he ever really showed his true potential at Mercedes. I think now we're kind of seeing how much talent he does have. And
Yeah.
he's kind of proving everybody, including myself, wrong. So good for him.
Well, I think Bottas has the talent, and we undervalue that, I think, because not simply we thought, well, he's going up against Lewis Hamilton every week, and Lewis Hamilton is one of the greatest ever. But I think it's what we're seeing with Sergio Perez. It's, Bottas has the talent, but he doesn't have that killer instinct. He doesn't have that determination. And, so he was never going to challenge Lewis. And so it was sort of a waste putting him in that great car. What we're seeing now is that talent that Bottas has really come through.
Yep, I think that's totally fair. So he's 7th for me today. Then I have Yuki, 8th. I thought, like you, he drove really well, outraced Gasly, who, we've talked a lot about in the past, and clawed his way up into 10th, I believe. So really good job from the AlphaTauri driver. AlphaTauri has seemed not as good as they were last season, and kind of struggling to get up there into the points. But Yuki pulled out a really solid race, was able to get around a few guys, including Vettel, I think, and Mick Schumacher, and really put in a good performance today. Then in 9th, maybe a bit of a surprise, I have Vettel. Thought he had really nice performance. Clearly outracing Stroll. I think, that Aston is not a very good car. It's struggling. Maybe it is a green Red Bull. We know Lawrence Stroll is no stranger to copying other teams' cars, as he did with Racing Point and Mercedes a few years ago. But Vettel, I think, put in a really strong performance, got really close there at the end to getting up into the points again. And, I think he's found his way with this team, and will continue to put in pretty good performances and try to gain some points throughout the season. And then 10th, I debated a little bit with this one, but I have Hamilton. I think Hamilton had a really solid race. He, I think, was totally fair on that opening lap. Definitely a racing incident between him and Magnussen.
Yep.
Unfortunately, got a puncture and had to come into pit. The only reason I have him down in 10th and considered not putting him in my top drivers this weekend is because of his radio message after that. He wanted to quit. And that to me is I can't accept that from any driver out there. If you want to quit, then get out of the sport. That's shameful. It's embarrassing from him. I was really frustrated with him. People call him the greatest Formula One driver of all time, and he wants to quit because he got a puncture on the first lap. That is shameful. He drove great after that, so I have him in my top 10, but I really didn't want to put him there.
I'm glad you brought this up, because when I heard that radio message, my views of Lewis Hamilton really took a hit. And I thought, you know what? You can't have the fastest car for 8 years, have it easy for 8 years, and now you're in a fight and want to quit. And I was really bothered by his radio message. I think he redeemed himself. I think when his team said, no, you stay in there, we saw the old Lewis Hamilton again. So I think that was a momentary lapse. So I'm not as harsh as you are, because I think he redeemed himself, but it may be telling that he would even verbalize such a thought. So we'll see how this season plays out, because I think that matters. Checo giving up his spot to his teammate without a fight, that matters. Lewis saying, maybe we should call it a day, that matters. We'll see how much it matters. I do think Lewis redeemed himself with his actual drive, but I did not care for that.
Yeah, I mean, make no mistake, Lewis Hamilton is an incredible driver. He has been for well over a decade now. He drove great today after that incident. I just felt like that is not something that you can say while you're still in the car.
I agree.
After the race, understandable to kind of act that way, but to sort of require your team to tell you to keep racing as a driver, that's really bothersome.
Yeah, I think so. So, Barcelona, Spain 2022 finished with Max, Sergio, and George Russell on the podium. We like to have a virtual podium. Who we think belongs up there that's not a driver? Who's on your virtual podium this week?
I have a few that could be on there. So one of them, Sainz and a T-shirt cannon. So he went out there and entertained some of the Spanish fans with the Ferrari T-shirt cannon and was shooting that off while everybody was screaming and yelling for a T-shirt, which made me laugh. It seems like such an American thing to do. But that was kind of fun to see.
Everyone loves a free T-shirt. Don't know
Even
why.
If it's a crappy T-shirt.
but everyone does, yes.
Yeah. Then I have one that's maybe a little bit disappointing, but I saw something that said the Drake curse strikes again. So like Drake the rapper, I guess, anytime he roots for a team or like bets on something, it seems like they always lose, even if they're the favorite. So I think this week he put like $230,000 bet on Leclerc to win this race.
Wow.
And Leclerc should have, but unfortunately his car died. So that kind of made me laugh.
Oh wow, that's a tough one. I don't care how much you make as a rapper. Losing 230 because of Ferrari power unit, that's no fun. For me, I've got one entity that belongs on the virtual podium, and that is the wind. We were told that Carlos Sainz slid off the track because of a gust of wind. He's going 180 miles an hour, slides off the track at a turn. Apparently, the wind caused it. I think it was just before that, Max, the always aggressive Max, going much too fast on the turn, slid off, was able to recover, just like Carlos. Again, we just assume it's aggressive driving, but I think it was Martin Brundle told us it was the wind. So if the wind can have that much impact on two drivers on two turns, I think it deserves a spot on the virtual podium.
Yes, the wind was very impactful today. Didn't really matter to Max too much. Affected Carlos a little bit more, unfortunately for him.
Okay, switching to the salt compound. I want to ask you, if you could have dinner with any three people that are currently in Formula One, doesn't have to be a driver, who would it be? And now, I must first tell you why I thought of this. I've seen pictures recently of George Lucas, the creator of Star Wars, on the grid prior to some F1 races recently. And it reminded me of the time, long ago, in a state far, far away. I was driving through North California, got stopped at a red light, and George Lucas, in the very first year of the Honda NSX, pulled up alongside of me. And I thought, hey, that's effing George Lucas. And then I thought, oh my God, he's got a Honda NSX, which is just such a badass car. And he looked as dour as a human can look. So I don't understand why. I'm like, wait, you're George Lucas. You created Star Wars. You're driving around North California in a Honda NSX, and you look dour. I don't think you would be a very good dinner guest. So who do you think would be fun to have at your dinner, Patrick, that's currently in F1? Give me 3.
Ooh, that's a good question. I think... I think I would have to say Daniel Ricciardo would probably be fun and entertaining. I don't think that should be surprising to anybody. It seems like he gets along well with everybody and is kind of fun and exciting. And I think he would be an enjoyable dinner guest. Another one is probably could be just as dour as George Lucas, but I think is fun. Gunther Steiner,
Nice.
team principal at Haas. He's seems angry all the time, but who isn't? So that seems fun as well. Let's see, and a third. I don't know. Maybe somebody like Martin Brundle who could tone everything down a little bit, but is very insightful. He can be kind of fun, and you could talk shop with him, I think. So those would be my 3 dinner guests.
That would be a fun dinner, I think. I asked you this question because I already had mine in mind. First would be Helmut Marko with Red Bull. He's been associated with Red Bull forever and with Formula One for 30 plus years now. And his role apparently is just to talk shit all the time. Every quote the old man gives is a banger. It is just always, he's talking trash about Lewis Hamilton and Mercedes, and then he'll go and knock Max the next day. I don't think we get as much honesty combined with knowledge of the sport from anyone else other than Helmut Marko. So he's at the top of the list, and I would be refilling his glass all night long. My next also was Red Bull, Christian Horner. Red Bull's such a great team. With all of Mercedes' success this past decade, maybe no team since the year 2000 has been as good as Red Bull over the long term, consistently. They do great, but no team seems like they have more fun than Red Bull. As much as they're there to win, they're also there to have fun. This is fun. Formula One is fun. The sport is fun. Racing is fun. Let's go out there, guys, and have some fun. And I think a lot of that comes from Christian Horner. So I'd want my dinner party to be fun, so I'll have Christian there. My third guest would be Fernando Alonso. I think one of the great drivers of all time, and now in the twilight of his career, he's being very forthright about his views on cars, on Formula One, on drivers, but also in a fun and provocative way. Not a Sebastian Vettel where it's like, we all should hold hands, sing Kumbaya, all get along. Alonso is bringing some hard truth that no one wants to hear, and I think that's fun.
Nice.
So those are my
I think
three
that would be a fun dinner.
Okay, time for Across the Line. That is our segment, Patrick, as you know, and as our listeners should know, where we predict the top 5 for the next race. The next race is in Charles Leclerc's hometown, the poor, hard scrapple town of Monaco. We predict who we think will finish in the top 5. Once one of us, a host, has made our choice that driver is no longer available. If we predict the right driver in the top 5, that's 1 point. If we predict correctly their exact position, that is 3 points. We've done this for every race. Can you give us a quick update on the standings?
Yep. So going into this race in Spain, I was ahead 22-18. After this race, I scored 5 points. Wow. You scored 2 points. Wow. So I'm now ahead 27-20.
Wow. Well, there are still several races to go. I can catch up, but my predictions have not been so great. Do I get to go first this time or no?
You do.
Okay, I do. Well, I think Mercedes is back. Their consistency has always been there. That's a hallmark of Mercedes. And now they seem to be approaching Red Bull and Ferrari in pace. But I don't think they're quite there yet. Charles wants to redeem himself for his horrible, wretched performance in Monaco last year where he crashed, I believe it was in qualifying, and then couldn't even race. And this week, he's out because Ferrari power unit. So I'm going, my number 1 pick will be Charles Leclerc from Monaco. He will win his home race.
The Monegasque to win. That's naturally a very good choice. I think it's also a track that's challenging to pass on with these big Formula One cars now. On such a tight and slow speed circuit. So it's very likely that the pole sitter will win the race. And Charles Leclerc has done a very good job in qualifying. So that's a very good pick. The only other guy that seems to be able to out-qualify him is Max Verstappen, so I'm going to take him with my number 1 pick.
Oh, nice. Okay, well, you get number 2 now.
I get number 2, and I think I had this 1-2 for this week as well. I'm going to take George Russell. As you said, Mercedes has been doing very well, and he has been probably the most consistent driver this season. So I'm going to take George Russell, number 2.
Nice. That's who I wanted to take number 2. I'm going to go. Shocking. I'm going with the Ferrari 1-2 then. I'm going to take Carlos Sainz. A bit of redemption for the Spaniard. So Ferrari will take 1 and 2 in Monaco next week. That's a pretty good one. My 3rd spot, I'm going to sneak in and take 7-time world champion Lewis Hamilton.
Nice. Not a bad choice. Never is with Lewis Hamilton. Who am I going to take then? I think that... Bottas has done well for himself this season. He's had a great time with Mercedes in the past here, so I will take Bottas, P3.
Wow.
And then P4, that's another tough one. We don't have the other Red Bull off the board yet, so I'll take Sergio Perez.
Okay, nice. That's a solid pick. It's Red Bull, Sergio. I think that's good. If memory serves, McLaren did well there last year. So I am going to go with my 4th pick, Lando Norris, assuming he is fully recovered, and I assume he will be. I'm taking Lando Norris as my 4th pick, and for my 5th, we're going to take Fernando. We're going to take Alonso.
Nice. That's a fun pick. Yep, always good to see to see him up there. I think you said you thought McLaren would do well and took Norris. You know, as hard of a time as he's having at McLaren, he always seems to do well in Monaco. Daniel Ricciardo will be P5 for me.
Excellent. Yep. Daniel Ricciardo does seem to really shine in Monaco, so that will be a fun one. I'm rooting for Ricciardo, even though I do think we are definitely in the twilight of his career. So that's great. You have Max, Russell, Bottas, Perez, and Ricciardo, and for Monaco, I have Leclerc, Sainz, Hamilton, Norris, and Alonso.
Nice.
How about your crazy prediction for the race? Any crazy predictions for Monaco or the rest of the season?
Let's see. For Monaco, it's a tough, windy, slow-speed track. We haven't had too many red flags so far this season, but we have in the last couple of seasons. So I'm going to say in Monaco, there will be multiple red flags, and the pole sitter will not win the race.
Oh, wow. Wow. Okay. That will be fun to see. So, could be interesting. Monaco's always fun, but it's fun as an experience. It's not necessarily the best race. My crazy prediction, I just can't be crazy enough to predict this for next week. So I will say this will happen sometime during the 2022 season. 3 of the 4 Formula One champions currently racing in Formula One will finish 1, 2, 3. So Seb, Vettel, Alonso, Lewis Hamilton, Max. Of those 4, there will be 3 that finish on a podium for one race.
Dang, that'd be pretty wild, actually, if one of those podiums came off.
All right. I want to thank you, son, and I want to thank our listeners for listening to everybody's most beloved father and son F1 podcast. A reminder to send your questions or comments to hardcompoundpod@gmail.com. We may read them on the show. We definitely will read all of them. And we are lights out.
See ya. Thanks for listening.
Awesome, son. I thought that was a good show. It was a fun race, good show. Glad I wasn't there. I'd love to be in Barcelona, but I don't want that heat that they experienced there today.
Yeah, I would have been a lobster, so